I recently had a really interesting conversation with some of my colleagues about music and how we see music in our minds, what music looks like to us. And I've always seen music in color. For as long as I can remember, when music is played, it appears as various colors sort of streaming through my mind. And I thought that was basically how everybody heard music. When they hear music, it appears as color. Way back in fourth grade, when I first started playing the trumpet, I remember the various notes would always appear as yellow. Like when I played and then I began to compose with the trumpet, it was always yellow. And it had nothing to do with the fact that the trumpet was made of brass, or because if I have a silver flugelhorn, and when I play this silver flugelhorn, it still appears as yellow in my mind. So then, over time, as I added various instruments, piano or guitars, it was almost like I was adding color. And I remember even when I was working on symphonies and writing symphonies in high school and sort of conceptualizing the idea of symphonies, the various parts of the orchestra started to transform into various colors that have remained the same to this day. When I listened to Brahms, for instance, especially his minor symphonies, I remember in high school just being engulfed in we had a music room, and I would listen on my dad's stereo to these albums, and it was like the room would just surround me with colors. And then over time, my mind began to define the colors. So the woodwinds appeared as one color, the brass appeared as one color, the strings appeared as another color. Various instruments like harp and piano appeared as colors, and so my mind began to see it as a sort of a stream, not like on a canvas taking a bunch of paint and throwing color and sort of splattering it up onto the canvas. It actually appears more like a river, a stream of colors that sort of flow along, and without time, without keys, without a sense of pitch or mode. For instance, if you stare at a river, there's no sense of cadence. There's just a sense of flow. And in my mind, when music is being played, it's like that stream, it's like that river, but it's in color. And the colors are broken up by the various groups. For some reason, if I listen to pop music, it's generally just sort of white. Now, music is never in black and white like a music staff. I don't see music as notes. I've never seen music as notes. As a matter of fact, when I first started composing, I created my own sort of musical tablature, my own way of writing music, because I didn't know how to write music or how to read music. So I used a series of dots on paper, and it sort of becomes shorthand for me. When I'm really feeling lazy, I fall back into this sort of musical shorthand, and a lot of my early symphonic ideas were notated this way in this weird sort of musical shorthand. But so when I listen to like pop music, it's generally just sort of white to me, or synth music. For some reason, I don't see a lot of color. It's just sort of white. But when I listen to orchestral music, that's where the colors come out, and they're based upon the families of the orchestra. So for me, and I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can focus on my screen here. So when I see the various groups of the orchestra, they're all in various colors. And for instance, flutes are always sort of an orangey brown, and all of the woodwinds are an orangey brown. Brass has remained yellow to me. Percussion is always green. Piano, harp are always sort of a light tan, and then strings are blue. And as I get into sort of a bigger version of this, you can see those colors fairly strongly. And then voices or a lighter blue. What was really sort of an eye-opening moment for me was when I started using sequencing programs that allowed me to color code my orchestra. Then suddenly I could see and write the way the music was appearing in my mind. And again, when I write music, it's not via cadence or through I don't think about time signatures. I don't think about key signatures. I don't think about any of those things. It's just sort of a flow that's happening. I define the music later. The theory comes later, if ever. After I write the music, it's not important to me. I don't care what time signature, what key signature, what type of mode we're in. It doesn't matter to me. All that matters is that the flow that I'm hearing in my mind is being put onto the canvas. And in this case, I use Digital Performer. So, in the case of writing music, if I were to write a string line, for instance, and hopefully you can hear this, but so if I hear this string line, in my mind, it is in sort of this blue, and so if I were to record that, and I'll record it right now. So this is how it would appear. And so while the strings are playing, I'm hearing the music as this sort of blue line, and it's broken up in a pattern, and it's moving through my mind and sort of streaming along. Now, if I add piano, for instance, to that, I'm adding a shade of this light tan. So as the strings are playing, while I'm playing the piano, this other color is being added to the palette, almost like somebody painting. And so while the strings are playing, so now I have two colors. Now, if I were to take that further and say add an oboe, all of a sudden I'm brightening the color. See, I have blue on my canvas, I have a little bit of this sort of tan, and now it's sort of a brown with yellow. And so when I record this and add this instrument, I've suddenly added a different color to the music. So now I have three shades of color. Now, if I want to take and add, for instance, I don't know, maybe a mark tree, which would be sort of like this, which is a percussion instrument. If I add that, I've added a shade of green in my mind. And so now I'm slowly building my palette. And that's how I build a symphony. That's how I build anything that I'm writing, whether it's a film or a television program. I'm building by these colors in my mind, which I would love to open a dialogue on that. I'd love to hear feedback from people. What do you see when you hear music? Is it color? I certainly can allow my imagination to go into landscapes, and my imagination to sort of go into cool circumstances and allow things to happen. And but that's not the same. When the music is actually playing, it's not necessarily a voluntary thing. It's not me saying I'm going to think about this or sort of evoking thoughts of landscapes and things. The music is creating colors. I can block that out, and but it just that's just where my mind goes. And that's so when I hear an orchestra playing, for whatever reason, I can sort of grab by the colors the various instruments. So I can take out the percussion. I can take out certain string lines based on their colors. I can take out the woodwinds and I can move them. And I can move them around in refine them in my mind because I'm seeing them as this sort of flow, and it allows me to dissect it. And if I'm listening to a masterwork or a piece from Bartok or from whomever, it allows me to take it all apart, to think about the various lines and to define them, in some cases refine them, and to think about how I would have written that or what I would do. And even with my own music, when I listen, I do the same thing. I'm constantly taking out parts of that orchestra, parts of that ensemble, and just recreating them in my mind based upon the colors and what I want that palette to show you. And I don't know what people see when they listen to my music, but I know what sort of happens in my mind. So let's open up a dialogue on this. I'd love to hear what people think. Thanks.